Hello, how are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. You might be able to tell by my patriotic ensemble that I'm recording this video on the 4th of July. I typically record my videos a couple weeks ahead of when I'm going to post them, so I was feeling festive, getting in the patriotic spirit, even though it has nothing to do with this video. That's why I'm dressed this way. However, I don't really have any plans today. I'm not going anywhere, and those are usually the days that I'll experiment a little bit more with my makeup because there's less risk. Since I'm not going anywhere, I don't have to worry about, if it comes out badly or not the way I like, then going to meet someone or going out in public. So I thought this was a good day to experiment, but as is often the case when I try to experiment and test new things, it doesn't always turn out the way I envision in my head. And today definitely turned out to be a bolder and more dramatic look than I was originally planning on. But that's how you learn, that's how you get better, by trial and error, and hopefully it still looks okay on camera. But if I was to go outside, it would be a bit of a dramatic look for the everyday. But today, as you've seen from the title, is a Disney Flashback video. If you haven't seen my other Disney Flashback videos, I will link my playlist up in the cards, as well as down below in the description box. But today we are talking about The Sword in the Stone, which was released in 1963. I only watched this one a couple of times as a kid. It wasn't a favorite go-to that I watched over and over, so it didn't stand out in my memory as much as some others did. I knew the overall idea and plot going into it, but not much detail. It is based on the book by T.H. White, which I feel like I should have known but didn't remember. Disney's still got the long opening credits going on, and a book opens at the beginning, but instead of it having a narrator, it's actually a song that is accompanying it, singing what is written in the book. It basically says the king died and nobody could decide who was the rightful heir to the throne. It said the land would be torn by war or saved by a miracle. Then it says a little later the miracle appeared in London town. And the miracle was the sword in the stone. The song finishes and then a narrator continues to say that on the sword it says, "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is right wise king born of England." So basically, whoever can pull the sword from the stone is the rightful heir to the kingdom and to be king. Many tried, but none could move or stir it. Time passed, and England was still without a king. After a while, the sword was soon forgotten about. This was a dark age without law and order. The strong preyed upon the weak. First, we meet Merlin and his owl Archimedes. Merlin insists a boy will be arriving in a half hour, so that Merlin can guide him to his rightful place. Archimedes seems to doubt Merlin and thinks he's guessing. Merlin tells Archimedes he is not guessing. Merlin's prophecy ends up coming true. The boy who drops in is named Arthur, and he tells Merlin, "Everyone calls me Wart." Arthur immediately insults Archimedes by mistaking him for a stuffed owl. So the two of them are not off to a good start. Merlin says he's much too sensitive. He then goes on to tell Arthur he's a wizard and he possesses the power to see into the future. Arthur tells Merlin he is training to be a squire, and Merlin responds, "No, you need a real education. History, science, mathematics." A little later, Arthur says, "I better be getting back to the castle. They'll be expecting me in the kitchen." Merlin says, "Very well then. We'd best be on our way." Then he creates this big dramatic build-up like he's going to do a spell and says, "Attention everything, we're packing to go." The sugar bowl tries to go, and Merlin says, "No, not you. Books are always first." Then his books begin to move. So his spell, which is big and sing-songy, is to get everything packed. But first, they must shrink down to a very small size so that they all can fit. Merlin nearly shrinks Archimedes. And the owl's response is, "You bumbling blockhead." I did find it funny that they used the word blockhead in this because I think it's Charlie Brown and the Peanuts that use that word all the time, but it's not really a word you hear commonly used anymore today. But evidently, in the time of Arthur and in the time of the Peanuts, it was quite the insult. I'm not sure if Merlin is supposed to be old and forgetful or not a very good wizard, but he doesn't seem too sure of himself at times. But then again, he did pack his entire house into one suitcase, so that's handy. As he's leaving, Merlin tells Arthur, "Don't be getting any ideas that magic will solve all your problems, because it won't." Arthur responds, "But I don't have any problems." And Merlin says, "Everybody's got problems. The world is full of problems." Just a little side note, Arthur has a foster father and brother. Back at the castle, Merlin tells the foster father that he is the world's most powerful wizard. The father says to him, "I hope you don't go in for that black magic." And Merlin says, "No, never touch the stuff." The father keeps calling Merlin Marvin. He also sends him to stay in the far west tower, telling him it's the best room in the house, the guest room. Once Merlin sees the room and how there is water leaking in everywhere from the rain that's going on, he says, "Yeah, unwanted guests," and then continues, "He's not going to drive me away." Archimedes seems to provide some of the comic relief in this movie. He's complaining to Merlin about the accommodations and getting wet, and Merlin threatens, "I'll turn you into a human." Archimedes responds, "You wouldn't dare." Merlin says, "I will, so help me I will." This is all because it's raining out, and Merlin wants him to fly down to hear the big news coming from London. The news is that the winner of the tournament wins the crown, meaning whoever wins the tournament becomes the King of London. A bit later, Merlin is beginning Arthur's training. He tells him he'll need imagination. He plans to turn him into a fish, but can't remember the spell, so he asks Archimedes. Archimedes tells him the spell, but then insists that he leave him alone so that he can take a nap. Merlin tells Arthur, when he stays out all night, he's always grumpy the next morning. And Arthur replies, "Then he must stay out late every night," making a joke and implying that Archimedes is always grumpy. It takes Merlin a moment to catch on, but he thinks it's funny. Merlin does indeed turn Arthur into a fish. Then Merlin also shows up as a fish. Merlin says, "You merely look like a fish, but you don't have the instincts of one." Then they sing a song, "What Makes the World Go Round." As they are swimming around, another fish, a big predatory one, I'm not sure what kind it is, starts to chase them. Merlin ends up getting trapped in a helmet of some sort. Arthur tells Merlin to use his magic to change them back to their human form, and Merlin says, "No, now's your chance to prove yourself. He's the brawn, you're the brains. Don't panic, use your head, outsmart the big brute." Eventually, after Arthur outsmarts the big fish a couple of times, he says to Merlin, "Is the lesson over yet?" Merlin tests him a little at this point to see if he really learned anything. Arthur tells him, yes, brains over brawn. Then Merlin steps in to help, but he cannot remember his spell. Archimedes gets pulled into things as Arthur is about to be eaten. Archimedes manages to save him, then Merlin comes out of the water as himself, and Arthur is flopping around on the land. Merlin changes him back and says, "How on earth did you ever get out of that mess?" Arthur tells him, "Archimedes saved me." Archimedes vehemently denies it and says, "I did nothing of the sort. I was just trying to eat him. Young perch is my favorite." But Merlin doesn't believe it. Later, back at the castle, Merlin asks Arthur if he's ever considered being a squirrel. After all, they live such dangerous lives, but as creatures have managed to survive many years. Arthur says he can't because he's working and has to finish his chores. Merlin uses his magic to help out and get everything cleaned up. Arthur says, "But I'm supposed to do it." Merlin says, "Nobody will know the difference as long as it's done." Merlin leaves everything cleaning up via magic while he and Arthur go off to train. Next, they become squirrels. Merlin tells Arthur, "What did I tell you? Always look before you leap." He's telling them this as they're jumping from tree branch to tree branch. Merlin and a female squirrel teach Arthur a bit about love. Later, Arthur's foster father discovers the magic going on in the kitchen. He describes it as black magic of the worst kind. The more he and his son try to stop it, they just end up getting cleaned along with everything else. Not long after that, Merlin and Arthur return, and Merlin stops the spell. Arthur's father is angry at him and also a little afraid of Merlin and his magic, so he starts handing out more demerits to Arthur. Arthur comes back at him and says, "Just because you can't understand something doesn't mean it's wrong." As a result, the position of squire is taken away from him, which means he won't be going to London for the tournament. Merlin encourages him not to give up, to get an education, and see what happens. Arthur's response is, "What have I got to lose?" Archimedes objects to the way Merlin is teaching, so Merlin basically says, "Fine, Archimedes, you teach." So Archimedes instructs Arthur to read every book in the room, and there's a lot of them. He quickly learns Arthur cannot read or write, so he teaches him the alphabet and has him practice writing it. Later, Arthur tells Merlin he has a dream of flying, so Merlin turns him into a bird. Merlin is trying to teach Arthur about birds when Archimedes steps in, basically saying, "What do you know about birds? I'm a bird." So Merlin says, "Okay, he's your pupil." Then Archimedes is teaching Arthur how to fly. He says he's a natural. But then a hawk shows up and wants to eat the bird version of Arthur. As Arthur is trying to get away, he falls into the chimney of an old lady. Due to the fact that he fell into a bunch of soot, he is coughing. The woman is sitting at the table playing cards when she hears the cough. She says, "Sounds like someone's sick. How lovely. I do hope it's serious. Something dreadful." Then when she sees what it is, she says, "It's nothing but a scrawny little sparrow." Then Arthur tells her, "No, I'm not a sparrow, I'm a boy. Merlin changed me with his magic. He's the world's most powerful wizard. World's most powerful bungler. Why, I've got more magic in one finger. Don't tell me you've never heard of the marvelous Madam Mim." I personally did not remember this character. Then Archimedes, while looking for Arthur, sees it's Madam Mim and says, "Good heavens," and goes flying away. Mim sings a song about withering flowers and how she finds delight in the gruesome and grim. Black sorcery is her dish of tea. She even makes herself look like a pig, but shows how she can make herself appear beautiful too. She realizes Merlin must want Arthur for something good, and she doesn't like the idea of that. So she says she has to destroy him, but that she'll give him a sporting chance because she's mad about games. As she is saying it, she's turning herself into a cat and starts chasing him, trying to catch him. She eventually does after his beak gets stuck in a dartboard. Then, just in time, Merlin shows up. Mim asks him if he wants to have a wizard's duel, and he says, "As you wish, madam." So they head outside to have their duel. Mim sets forth the rules, but why she even bothered, I don't know, because she had no intention of sticking to them, and began cheating immediately. They go back and forth, changing into different animals, trying to take each other out, as apparently that's how wizards duel, at least in this movie. Mim cheats by turning into a dragon. She thinks she's won and is all proud of herself. Everyone thinks Merlin has disappeared, but then you hear his voice and he says, "I haven't disappeared. I'm very small. I'm a germ, a rare disease, and you've caught me, Mim." Then Mim starts to go through all the symptoms of the disease. Later, she's at home and must rest. Merlin says she should take a few weeks to recover and opens up all the shades to let light in, telling her to get lots and lots of sunshine. And she responds, "I hate sunshine. I hate horrible, wholesome sunshine." Arthur points out to Merlin that he could have been killed. And Merlin responds, It was worth it if you learned something from it. Arthur responds by telling Merlin, "Knowledge and wisdom is the real power." It is now winter. Sir Kay, Arthur's brother, has been knighted. He is preparing for the tournament. His squire gets sick, so now Arthur is back in as squire. Arthur is excited about this, so he runs to tell Merlin and Archimedes. Archimedes congratulates him, but Merlin is less than pleased and says, "A fine monkey suit for polishing boots." Arthur says, "It's what all squires wear." Merlin responds, "And I thought you were going to amount to something. I thought you had a few brains." The two argue back and forth, and Arthur is upset and says, "I'm lucky to be Kay's squire." This sets Merlin off, and he gets really upset and says, "Blow me to Bermuda." And that's just what happens. At the tournament, Arthur realizes he forgot Kay's sword back at the inn, so he runs back to get it, and Archimedes is with him too. The inn is locked and they can't get in. Then Archimedes notices a sword in the stone in the churchyard. Archimedes says to Arthur, "You're going to have a hard time pulling it off." As Arthur touches the sword, it lights up and music plays. He's able to remove it. He rushes the sword back to his brother quickly once it is removed. Some men who are at the tournament realize it's the sword in the stone. Nobody believes Arthur pulled it out. They all think it's a joke. They tell him to prove it, so they put the sword back in the stone, and Kay steps in and says anyone can pull it out once it's been pulled, figuring that that's how Arthur did it. But then he is unable to. A bunch of men try all at once, but it doesn't work. A couple of them say, "Let the boy try." Arthur pulls the sword out with no problem. He's the rightful king, and they all say, "Hail King Arthur!" Arthur has no idea how to be king, and tells Archimedes, "I wish Merlin was here." And just like that, Merlin appears, straight from Bermuda. He's in beach gear as opposed to his normal wizard's robe. He says, "The 20th century, you can have it, a big mess." So they added a little joke for the audience there. Merlin has a realization and mentions King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, and tells Arthur, "You'll become legend. They'll be writing books about you for centuries to come." And that's basically where it ends. So I did enjoy this one. As I said, I didn't remember much of it. I get that they were trying to teach that knowledge and education are important. Most of the movies and Merlin's lessons didn't exactly help Arthur pull the sword from the stone. They didn't really explain what it was that made him the chosen one. Merlin focused heavily on education and knowledge and brains over brawn, but was that for the future, for Arthur to be a good ruler, or did he need those skills and awareness in order to be worthy of the sword? Did Merlin even know that's what he was preparing him for, or was he just trying to educate him in general? I was confused about all of that. For a movie that's titled The Sword in the Stone, I didn't feel like the plot completely lent itself to the title or the way I would have thought the story would go. I am glad I revisited it after all these years, but I don't know if it's one of the Disney classics that I'll be watching frequently. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on Sword in the Stone. Do you like this story in this movie? Is it a favorite for you? Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoy this Disney Flashback series. I certainly enjoy doing it for you. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and especially if you're a Disney lover like me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a very magical day.